Okay, don't look there. Look there. There. Not there. There. And don't shake. Okay, I've been trying to record this video and edit this video, and I don't know how, and this is like my first video, and I don't know how you all do it. I'm gonna try to slow down, but I wanna keep this video short because I don't think I'm going to be able to edit it, and I'm already behind, and I just have to jump into it so I can catch up. I am reviewing Sister Wives. If you'll allow me just a few minutes, I watched Sister Wives, not all of it. When it first started airing back in, I think it was 2010, like many people, I tuned into the first couple seasons because I was curious and I just wanted to know, yeah, nosy, and it seemed interesting. And then, kind of as the seasons kind of went, couple seasons went on, it was like, oh, they're just like any family, and it won't stop shaking. They're just like any family, mostly. And it kind of just got boring, and I kind of got over it. But then, I did watch episodes here and there, like the Mary Cat fishing scandal, if you even want to call it that. And then COVID-19 happened to us all, and this was like in the summer. I was bored one day, and I happened upon a Sister Wives marathon, and it was the season, I think we're in season 15, so this was probably season 13. It was their last season in Vegas when they decided to move, and maybe we can do a quick recap of that, but they moved. They up and moved like in 6 weeks or something crazy like that to Flagstaff. So then last season, the 14th season, they're in a Flagstaff. They're all spread out in rentals. Well, let's start at season 15 where we are now. They're all in rentals, somewhat far from each other, like 5 to 15 miles away from each other. Well, Christine owns her house. She always has, so she's been there. Mary and Janelle are renting, and I think Mary's had to move like 3 times since she's been in Flagstaff, and I believe Janelle once. And now Robin and Cody are in the process of buying a house because they lost their rental, so they're waiting for that to close. It's kind of where the episode opens. They're waiting to hear back whether or not they actually own the house. So they have these moving vans full of their stuff that they bring to the house that isn't technically theirs yet. So Robin doesn't want to unpack and unload because God forbid they don't get the house, they'll have to repack it again, and I can understand that. But it's pretty much gonna be their house, and she is still sort of holding on to the slightest hope. If you recall last season, she was totally against buying a house. She wanted to find a rental. They could not find a rental. Her and Cody were sort of at the standoff, and it was real bad because they just couldn't see eye to eye, and she really felt, and still does, that it's not God's plan for them to rent. So I'm just going to kind of wrap this up, and then we'll get to the rest of the episodes. That's how I'm going to kind of review it, like, by each wife and what's going on. So they finally get the call that the house is indeed theirs. It's closed. They can unpack. And Robin is kind of resigned. She's accepted it. She's resigned. Cody is thrilled, excited, wants to share with the kids. It's good news. The kids are excited. They can start unpacking their clothes and whatnot. And Robin still has this attitude of, because it doesn't make sense to her and she can't see, the benefit or the long term, like, then it can't possibly be God's plan. But I would say to her, it's sort of the point of, you hear it's cliche, God works in mysterious ways, and often we don't understand things he does. And it's really where your faith comes in, to just trust that he's leading you to the right place. Even if it doesn't make sense to you, it's not always supposed to make sense to you. And sometimes he will kick you, he'll drag you kicking and screaming, which is exactly what he's done to Robin. So they're moved in, they bought their house. That's where that's at. Then we get to like the main issue, the main crux of this episode. Janelle calls together the wives and Cody for a lunch, and they're all, it's been a while since they've all gotten together, and she's got something she wants to talk about, and she kind of she's nervous, her eyes twitching, and she kind of just puts it on the table. She asks right out, like, why do you believe in the principle? Like, why did you get into the principle of plural marriage, essentially? And they're all like shocked and taken aback, like, oh, like that's what we're talking about? Like, yeah, that's what we're talking about. So they kind of go around the table, and You know, Mary's came from a polygamous, a plural family, so it's just, you know, that's how families go for her. Kind of same for Christine. She had lots of grandmas, and that was real fun, and she just liked, you know, having multiple moms. And I believe that Robin also grew up in a plural family, and she just liked the idea of having a big family. And Janelle, although she didn't grow up in a plural family, she liked the sort of like, you know, the outcome that would come from having a plural family, you know. And Cody is kind of like, well, you know, I guess the broader question is, well, it kind of sounds like you all did this because you're commanded to do it, sort of like obligated to do it for religious reasons. And that's probably part of it. It is part of it. Where Cody wants to believe that they all came together because they loved each other. You know, they fell in love with Cody and they saw a man that they could have a family with. And, you know, to kind of think that your faith, their religion, their spirituality had nothing to do with it. It's kind of, you know, like, Cody, why did you get into it? And let me just start right here and say, before I go any further, I don't hate any of these people. I don't know any of these people. I don't have a dog in this fight at all. To me, this is a reality show, and they are real people. This is their real life. These are real relationships, but there's, you know, there can be editing and characterization going on here. And so I'm not one to just outright, I know a lot of people don't like Cody. I mean, I'm not a fan of Cody per se, but I don't hate him. He ain't my type of guy that I would ever be interested in. But, you know, and I don't even necessarily have a favorite wife. I mean, there's some I can probably relate to more than others, and sometimes some of them kind of like get on my nerves, but I don't ever like hate any of them. I don't hate any of them. I really try to understand where they're coming from, and which is why I was interested in watching the show. Like, what compels them? What made them want to? Was it just you know, because their religion told them to, or was it a calling? And they all, you know, I watched a couple of the first couple seasons actually, to kind of see like, how did we, you know, where did we start and where are we now? And it's a real different show, or I mean, at least the way they present it. I mean, and I don't think they were lying back then, but they were really a family. I mean, not that they're not, how do I say it? Like, they were really unified. They were very unified. In those first few seasons, you know, if Cody was taking a wife on vacation, the other wives would get together and take the kids bowling. They'd go camping. They would, when they first moved to Vegas and Robin was pregnant, they were getting together once a week to have lunch with each other. Like, they were really unified, and not so much anymore. So my point was, is back then they kind of always presented them being in this plural family and marriage as a calling on their lives. And I equated it to, because I'm not a religious person, but I do believe in God and him sometimes putting a calling on you to, for me, for example, to be, let's say, a bigger person in certain situations. It's called upon me to, you know, very cliche, like, you know, to turn, if somebody slaps, you know, your cheek, turn and give them your other one. Now, that is not easy to do. It's very hard. That's very challenging, but I'm called to do it. So I try to live by that principle. So if they are called to be in a, you know, these wives are called to be in this plural marriage, I understand, to be challenging and hard, but you rise to the challenge because that is what you're called to do. And so it'll make you a better person. Okay, so that is part of it, Cody, when he's asking like, well, why did you marry me? Why did you get into it? Well, we got into it because, yes, you were somebody I fell in love with. You were somebody I wanted to have a family with. And because, you know, I felt called to live this life. Are we dropping the ball as a collective? Maybe. Are you dropping the ball, Cody, as a husband to all of us? Maybe. Are we dropping the ball among the sister wivehood here? Like, yeah, maybe. And then the conversation then, Janelle asked, well, do you feel like our family has changed? Do you feel the culture has changed? And they all, Robin says, well, since we got to Flagstaff, yeah. And Janelle's like, well, since we got to Vegas, I say it has, because, they all went from, except Robin, they all lived in one house in Utah. And I think it was Mary had mentioned, like, all the kids had bonded. So when they got to Vegas, the older kids had a bond, but now we're all living separately, kind of as separate families. I think Janelle refers to it like sort of like tribes. Like, we're all our own little tribe, but we are a family. And Cody is the common denominator. He's kind of the chief. And, Robin can't really, she doesn't really know what to say because she never lived in the one house with everybody. So she doesn't have that experience to draw from to say what is better, what is not. So she kind of sort of a little bit out of a loss. Janelle sort of throws it to Mary, like, hey, Mary, right? Like, what do you think? What would you say? Like, we were kind of the girls from the beginning, you and me have my back here. And Mary, I mean, can I tell you, I took some notes, which I watched the episode twice, and I have all these notes, like, here's Janelle's note. Here's Robin and Christine. There's Mary's notes. Like, Mary has a rental. That's what my note says. She doesn't have really anything. She is so, I don't think she's afraid. I don't want to say she's afraid to speak her mind, but she's like, we had a conversation. Trying to remember, like, where was and Janelle's like, come on, Mary, like, don't leave me hanging. And she's like, no, I mean, yeah, things are different. That is the most she gives. Which isn't surprising, because if we recall to last season when Cody brought up the one house proposal, and everybody had an opinion except Mary. Mary was like, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just kind of gonna, whatever they want. I'm gonna go with the flow. Majority rules. I don't know why. Cody says that just not being vulnerable. Janelle in this moment is really putting herself out there, being vulnerable, and Mary just refuses to do so. Well, I wonder why that is. And this is not like a rhetorical question. Like, I really wonder why she is just tight. She's not gonna give any more than she has to absolutely give. She really didn't say much at this lunch. She talked in her one-on-one, and it's interesting, I think because of COVID, they all are sort of sitting on the couch alone, giving their solo, confessional, if you will. So Mary's kind of like, yeah, it's different, it's changed. Christine's like, yeah, I felt like a single mom in Vegas. Like, really felt like I was on my own for the first time in my life. And Robin says, yeah, I agree, but I thought that's just how it was, because she never lived in the one house together, so she just thought that's how plural marriage works. And and at this point, Christine's neck is steadily getting redder and redder, because Janelle kind of brings up the point that our family culture, there ain't one. And I don't know what the solution is to make it better. I'm for the house, but I'm not sort of proposing we do that by any means. That may not be the solution, because we'd all have to be on board for that. And Christine's just like, here we go again. Like, I hate this conversation, but here we go again. And it's true. This conversation really had me thinking, because I can relate to Christine adamantly not wanting to share a house and being the queen of your castle. But if you're really, called to live this plural family, polygamous marriage, then you knew what you were signing up for. The argument was last season, we don't want to see Cody walk out the door with another wife on a date. But he has other wives and he goes on dates with them. Like, we are aware, there are kids, there's proof and of intimate relationships, and he has companionship and with them. And that's the challenge, and that's sort of what Janelle brings up. Like, Christine, remember how we used to fight all the time when we had to share the kitchen, but we had to work it out because we had no choice. We had to deal with it, and I think it made us better in the end. And Christine's like, yeah. And it's true. Like, if we're called to be in this relationship, in this marriage, there are going to be challenges, and it seems like right now, and Janelle said, like, you know, lives have gotten really easy because we can go to our separate houses, we don't have to deal with each other, we can be in denial, we can just avoid it. And how are we growing? And not just that, but like, what are we giving our children? Like, their relationships might not be as close with each other, you know, kids from different moms, because, you know, it's just, it's where it is, you know. And Cody, throughout all of this, is kind of like, you know, I didn't get that he was being really negative, but, you know, he's asking, you know, well, would I do it over again? Like, and, you know, I've told everybody I don't want to be the advocate for plural marriage. It's basically like he doesn't want to be the poster boy for it anymore, and I don't blame him, because it's not looking too great right now. At least his family's, I'm never going to get on here and say, like, I mean, a plural marriage, I'm not called to do it. I don't see the benefit of it. It's not for me, you know. I don't judge them. That is their choice, their life. It's not for me. But he even says, like, at some point, he says, like, you know, plural marriage isn't normal. So what are you saying, Cody? And even Robin is kind of like, Mary's like, you know, he's kind of being negative, and Robin's like, why is he saying these things? And he's saying, like, would I do it again? And Christine's like, that's a dumb thing to say, because you can't do it again. Like, here we are. There's no do-overs. And what, you wouldn't marry me again? I mean, that she's saying it's hard to hear, and I agree. That would be very hard to hear if my husband, whether we were monogamous or not, was looking at me saying, I don't know that I would do this again. Like, oh, Cody. And then, you guys, the moment, and like I said, I want to be fair to all of the wives and be kind, but I kind of was like, what? Robin is like, well, you know, because the whole thing is like, everybody's sort of agreed that everything changed when they got to Vegas. So Robin's like, well, can I bring up the pink elephant in the room? Are you trying to say this is because of me when I came into the family? And I was like, what? Like, I at no point at all thought for 1 second this had anything to do with Robin. I completely see where Janelle and Mary and Christine are coming from when it comes to the one house and the unit. Like, no, it's had nothing to do, like, and she actually starts crying. And I mean, I feel bad for her, but it's like, girl, really? It's not about you. I know it's usually, you know, because Cody makes it all about you, but this really isn't, it's not about you. And I think Janelle really feels bad, like, no, like, no, absolutely not. Like, no, it's nothing to do with you. And Mary, in her confessional, she doesn't say anything at the table, says, you know, I can see how she would feel that way. You know, it was bad timing. Like, when she came into the family, there was an investigation. We had to hightail it out of Utah. Like, we were in rental. Like, it was a really bad timing. And, you know, Janelle reiterates, like, you know, it had nothing to do with her coming into the family. Like, we should have been able to absorb her as a teammate. And, you know, Janelle, I actually would say that I think you guys did very well absorb her into your family and take her on. To me, at least, the way it was edited and all, it never seemed like she was on the outside. Even though now Christine is kind of saying, well, you know, I feel like an outsider. I feel like you all hate me. I feel like when we have family gatherings, I don't want to go because I feel like it's going to be a hostile environment. And instead of Mary, you know, being, you know, Mary, who's a blank page, being like, you know what, I can relate to you. She just sits there and in her confessional says, yeah, I can understand, because I kind of, you know, I feel the same. You know, I have no community here. I have no friends here. I'm not close to the family. I'm on the outs. Like, and again, Christine's neck steadily getting redder and redder. And, you know, poor Christine, I think, is going through it. She's going through it. And I think I would say it's a culmination of things. You know, I don't think her relationship with Cody is probably in a really good place. She doesn't really want to be in Flagstaff, I don't think, even though, I mean, I don't think it was a good idea for them to move, honestly. I think it just, and I still don't know why they did. And that season, at least the way it was edited, it seemed really financially driven. to me, because Cody was all about like, let's get a property, let's save money, let's sell the houses, there's all this equity in these houses. And it's like, you know, when you're making, I've learned, and I can tell a story later on, but don't ever make decisions based on money. I mean, it's a bad idea to make a decision based on money, because you just never know. And now I feel like they're in this worse thought. They've done this before, you know, when they moved from Utah to Vegas, it was sort of like under duress, like they didn't really have a choice. This was really just like, I feel like it could be financially, he thought, you know, it was too expensive to live in Las Vegas, and he just wanted the money out of the houses. I think it made for a good storyline, but these are people's lives. I mean, we upheaved like kids in the middle of their high school years. Like that's okay. So we have a storyline, and I feel like it gives Cody something to do, you know, because I don't know what else he does. He has, and I'm not, this isn't me trying to be like Cody's a deadbeat, but I don't know what else he does. I mean, I know the other wives have their, you know, like Christine and Mary have their LuLaRoe like clothing sales store. Robin has like Sister Wives Closet. I'm sure Janelle has something going on. And yeah, Cody has his fingers in all of it because they're his wives, but what does he do like on the daily? Like, what is his job other than this show, which I really do believe is their bread and butter? I mean, I don't know. I'm not in their pockets. I don't know that. But I mean, right now, I mean, they had mortgages for 4 houses in Las Vegas. They had a huge property in Coyote Pass that they had put a down payment on, and I'm assuming are making mortgage payments. They have Christine's house payment in Flagstaff, 3 rental payments. Like they must be spending a ton of money, and it's not my business. They can spend their money however they want, but I feel like, why did we make this move? I feel like it gives Cody something to do. You know, if he's not running from house to house and overwhelmed and just, you know, ready to like have a heart attack, like it gives him something to do. And then it also makes him, and I'm not gonna like go into Cody's psychology if he's a narcissist or whatever, but I feel like it makes him this sort of like, I'm the leader, I'm the hero, look what I, you know, it kind of, and he says like, you know, this is the final move. But in that season when they were talking about moving, they had like the 3 first wives had counted like, we've moved 18 times. And I shuddered, just like Robin shuddered at the thought, like, you all have moved 18 times. Like, no. I would have been like, nope, we're not doing that. We're not gonna do this. And so it just doesn't make any sense to me why they moved, but I'm not in their family. I'm not in their finances. I'm not part of the discussion, so I don't know. But I just think it was a bad idea. I think it was a bad idea to move. And it, you know, if things were kind of shaky before, they're not any better. And, you know, there was a really nice moment, you know, where Robin tells Christine, like, you know, I want you to know, like, I don't hate you, like, I love you, which is sometimes, you know, I feel like, you know, I'm telling you, Christina's going through it, and Christine needs love. She needs to be loved on. She needs friends to, like, lift her up and be like, girl, you're gonna be okay. Christine, you're gonna be okay. You know, you are strong. Because she feels like, you know, I'm not as strong as I thought I was. I still get jealous. That's all very normal, Christine. Like, you don't have to apologize. And, you know, and I love you too, Robin, or Christine. Like, I love Christine too. And Cody's just like, you know, you know, what is the problem? Like, he asks, like, in his confession, like, what is the problem? Like, if I have a great relationship with one wife and then another one's not so great, like what is the problem? Is it plural marriage? I don't think, I wouldn't necessarily, you know, surprisingly blame, because it's, you guys, it's easy to be like, yep, it's all plural marriage. This is why Christine feels terrible, why Mary's on the outs, you know, like it's all, but I feel like it's too easy of an answer to say like, yeah, it's all plural marriage. Because, you know, yeah, I don't know any men, but I've heard of some men who have a wife and a, you know, a side chick, and sometimes none are the wiser. Like, you know, he can juggle both, maybe another, just fine. It's the energy and effort you put into relationships. I think, Cody, it might be you. So then we get on to the last part of the episode where Maddie and Caleb are coming to visit to bring the new baby Evie, who was born last season, and she was born with a syndrome called Fatco syndrome, where she's missing some fingers and some bones. She's gonna have to have some surgery in the future. Just beautiful little girl, very bright-eyed and alert. And they all love her. They're all rallying around her, you know, and Maddie talks about how she wants her just to have like a normal life and not be held back by these challenges. And it's great. They all have a great attitude, and it's a beautiful moment. You know, Robin shares that, you know, because the moms are grandmas now, and she's Bubby, which is Czechoslovakian for grandma. And, you know, Janelle's just going to be grandma. Yeah, she's just grandma. And, Christine is Oma, which is German for grandma, and Mary, well, Mary's not there because Mary had a prior engagement, and Mary didn't have a title. She didn't think about it. It's not her thing. Surprise, surprise. And, you know, then, you know, Cody kind of goes into, you know, that, you know, because earlier, well, okay, he pretty much says, you know, if the wives are having a problem, they need to fix it. He's tired of the complaining. He's tired of the whining. You know, if you got a problem, fix it. Because he even mentioned earlier when they were at the lunch, like, you know, he kind of threw out there like, well, ladies, you know, the question is, like, do you want to have a relationship with his sister wives? I mean, I don't really think that's the question. I think the question is, do we want to have a relationship with you? Because I think, I mean, I don't know, I wonder if these women would be friends with each other if there was no Cody. Like, if you met at church, you met in the grocery store, you met wherever, like, would you be friends with each other? I think some of them would. I don't know that they all would, but I think it's really more with Cody. And I think he, you know, it's easy for him. You know, if he's having problems with Christine, and I feel like he is, you know, she said, like, you know, you're always on your phone. And he says, you know, in his confessional, it's not because I'm addicted to my phones, because I really don't want to engage with you. Well, there you go, Cody. Like, she needs some engagement. She needs that. And it's easy for him. I always felt like, you know, in these marriages, it's easy for him. You know, let's start with Mary. They've been having problems for many seasons now. And it's gotten no better. And if you watched last season, he seems totally and completely over her. He is not interested in working it out. He's not interested in being with her, hanging out with her, spending time with her, sitting next to her. Like, he is over Mary. So it is easy, you know, and Mary, I think she's kind of over it now too. But I think at first Mary was more inclined to want to work on it and let's go see the therapist, because he's her husband. That's it. That's all there is. Like, he can sort of compartmentalize these wives, and, you know, so he's not having a great relationship with Mary. They're not, you know, sharing a bed together, but that's okay because he has 3 other wives who can provide companionship, intimacy, friendship, hand-holding, whatever it is. Like, he has that. Mary doesn't. So it's easy for him to not have to deal with it. And we wonder why Mary is, you know, I don't want to say, we wonder why I don't wonder why she is the way she is. She's been neglected and not cared for. And that's your wife. You're supposed to care for her. And it's not supposed to always be easy, but it's easy for him. And like he said at the table, like, I love my life. I get all the love I need. It's you guys who feel like you don't get enough. Yeah, and I think that's when he said, like, well, you know, plural marriage isn't normal. But I mean, if this is what you were called to do, because don't tell me, Cody, that I just love these women and I just want a family. Like, I think you were called to do it as well, unless you really just wanted like a bunch of wives just to like feed your ego, which I don't think you ever said, but that's kind of what you're saying, or else you would have been okay with them to also, because then it's just like a love fest. Like, we all love each other. We all want to be together. And that means they could have gone out and found side relationships with men. And you should have been fine with it because, you know, love is love. And we all just fell in love. Oh, he can be frustrating. And so when he's saying, like, you know, fix it, I think you're missing that you're part of this equation, Cody. And to quote Hyman Roth in The Godfather Part 2, Cody, This is the business you have chosen.